So just want to thank you all for coming out on this Saturday when it's lovely weather outside, and we're very pleased to welcome Wayne with us today. Our member Ken, who was the president last year, wanted to introduce Wayne as they've known each other for a very long time, but sadly Ken couldn't be here today. I do have Ken's introduction, so please imagine that I am Ken, and I will introduce Wayne as Ken. Okay. So, I met Wayne Finley when I'd been teaching at Wusong University in Daejeon a bit over a year. Wusong had a mentorship program, and Wayne, a new hire then, as fate would have it, was assigned to me.
He's a good mentor. Yeah.
Poor Wayne.
Wayne did not need much mentoring. He excelled quickly at Wusong and has continued to do so in his teaching career and as a service-minded professional representative at TESOL. Wayne is a bright, kind, outgoing person and a compassionate leader with a relentlessly positive outlook. It has been my honour to know Wayne, and I am certain he will give a lively, engaging presentation at our June 1st, 2019 debut chapter meeting. Wow. Okay, welcome Wayne.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I enjoyed that introduction. As you said, Ken, I knew him 2012, and he was a mentor. At Wusong, that means showing me the supermarket, the coffee shops, maybe help me find my classrooms, things like that. But today I want to talk about one of my passions, which is public speaking. I not only enjoy teaching it, I enjoy doing it. So I've done a lot of presentations in TESOL. Last year I even did my first TEDx talk. So I was very happy with that. That was quite scary. Thank you. And what I've really enjoyed about teaching public speaking is I've never failed to take that very shy student, you know, the one you get in your classroom, they're kind of like this, they want to hide from the audience. I never failed to get any student transformed from that into this, standing in front of an audience, making eye contact, doing all those things we want to see in presenters. Sometimes I've been blown away how quickly they've transformed by some of the things that I've been teaching. Before I start showing some of the more practical things, I want you to do a little bit of discussion. So I've got some paper here. I'll give one for each group. I'll give this one here. And what I'll ask you to do is together to write some ideas. This is a mind map, or like a brainstorm. The first thing I do with any student who comes into my public speaking class, I don't immediately say, hey, let's do presentations, this is how you do it. What is the first thing I talk about? What do you think is the problem? Maybe hard to see on this page. The scream side, Edward Munch side, yes.
Something on both sides.
Well, you'll get to the other side soon. Yeah, it's not a trick. So yes, students, they come in, and I'm sure maybe even you now, it's possible that if somebody says, hey, next week I want you to do a presentation, you'll think about it all week, you'll feel like a huge disaster is coming, and you try to avoid it. And so before I teach anything in public speaking, I ask my students to tell me why. Why do we get nervous doing presentations? What are the reasons? If I can give you 2 or 3 minutes, write on that paper anything you think of. Why are presentations so scary? I'm doing it right now. It doesn't feel dangerous, but to many people, maybe even you here today, it feels incredibly scary, even life-threatening. So why? What are the reasons? I'll give you 2 minutes. Please talk to your group. So why is it so scary? Yeah.
This is quite, what's the word, subjective?
Yeah.
So for me, it would be perhaps connection.
Connecting.
What do you mean by connection?
Actually, I don't really care about this stuff.
Not having
It's
one?
subjective, but
They're new?
like actually engaging.
You worry about connecting.
Yeah,
Right.
That's for me.
Depend on your
Yeah.
audience, students or peers or colleagues?
I
or-
mean, different to that. It's just the actual
You're-
engagement.
okay.
Engaging. That's just me. It's subjective. Actually, is there like, what's the word for? Do I resonate with the?
Do you relate? Do you
Yes.
connect? Do you build rapport?
Yeah,
that kind of
for me
thing.
it's that.
Yeah.
That's the fair right. Am I smart enough? Engagement. Because you can present, but then what else? Connection.
Let's have a look. You've got mistakes. Yeah, actually, that one, students always write. Because I give them the exact same thing to do. Mistakes. They're all scared of making mistakes, especially my English students who are from Korea. Not just mistakes in presentations, but any time using language. I made a mistake. Oh, I think because they're used to these exams where it's all about grammar and vocabulary. One mistake. Oh, I've lost my A grade. So I think that can be a big problem. Yeah.
I wrote mistakes is kind of a big fear that I have. It's like
Yeah.
if I forget what I'm about to say, if I trip up on my words, if I miss out a section and then think, oh my god, do I need to go back and do that, or should I just keep going? You know.
Nervousness?
Yeah, it's kind of like nervousness and like worry that I'm gonna. I tend to talk quite quickly. So I'm always worried if I get nervous, I talk faster and faster and faster and faster.
That does happen. Some people, they start talking very fast.
When
Yeah.
I first started teaching, it was terrible. Nobody could understand me because I'd always spoken quickly, so I was just motor mouthing.
Well,
the
it's
students.
funny you say that because I remember I was teaching at university in Japan,
Yeah.
and some people, I don't want to offend anybody here, but didn't want the American teachers because they spoke too fast.
Yeah, yeah.
And as a Canadian, I speak slower, and
Yeah.
British people with that little accent in there, you know, their words are pulled out a little bit
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
But I could understand my
It's official language. So English can be first language in Philippines. All of us, we speak English. We in our school in Inder, we started learning English. So English is one.
But that in your case here is
Thank you. I heard lots of good ideas from both groups. I think similar ideas. Let's get some of your suggestions. How about this group? Can you give me one of the things you wrote?
Okay, the thing that I wrote was the fear of making mistakes.
Yeah, I think this group also had that one. Yeah.
Speaking too quickly, getting kind of that nerves building up and then speaking too
Maybe kind of nervous about looking nervous can be a
Yeah,
big problem. Like,
yeah.
oh, everybody will know I'm
And then it
nervous.
just
Yeah.
escalates. To
And then
a
it can
big
get
sweaty
worse
mess.
and worse, and it feels like you want the hole to open up and
Yeah,
suck you out. Yeah.
Just get it over and done with, so you start speeding up more, and then.
That's true. Yeah, if you're nervous, you just want it to end, so you try and rush, and that can be a bit of a disaster. Yeah. How about this group? Can you give me another reason? That's all right.
Yeah, she said might think I'm stupid or foolish, insecurity about second language, just judging my appearance, my abilities.
Yeah, I think it's partly to do because we are in our comfort zone. We have a certain status, and a lot of studies say whenever you put that status in jeopardy, you think you're going to lower that status, that can make you very scared. But I think, as you said here, it can be subjective. So everybody might have a fear of it, but for different reasons. Some students, maybe they have a bad memory in high school where they made grammar mistakes, and so that's why they'd be scared to get up there. Other people, it could be their image and how they look. So usually I don't tell my students there's this exact reason why you're nervous. What I say is, well, we have to solve this problem. But one thing I can tell you is, in public speaking, you can feel nervous, but you don't have to look nervous. And so one thing I do tell them, so usually a lot of students, when they start, you say, do a presentation. What do? They start doing this. Or they might have their PPT and they're kind of doing this. And I saw this semester my students, they would do this. So that's quite scary. I feel very bad, so I tried to help them with that. Those students are my lowest level university freshman students, pre-level, so they're already very nervous about using English. So you see all these responses, also fidgeting, doing this, maybe like this. Why do we do that? When we feel nervous, why does our body start doing this?
To protect yourself.
From what?
Attacks.
Yeah, that's actually the reason I was reading. The reason we start covering our body, hiding behind the podium, is because thousands of years ago, when we were nervous, it was in real life-threatening situations. So there might be a lion or a wolf or another human being coming to attack you. You instantly feel nervous. You protect yourself. You start talking very fast because you want to get out of the danger zone. So yeah, I think part of that understanding really helps students. Now, if you turn over your paper, we've identified the problem. We don't want to look nervous. We don't want to feel nervous. What is the solution? I'll give you a few minutes. Write down some suggestions. How do we solve this problem? Oh, did I hit record? I think I did.
Well,
Yes, I did. Yeah. But I have a backup camera too.
teacher has the same experience.
Yeah.
In front of the strangers, making nervous. Then students get kind of comfort.
I think that's right. You have to relate to the students, because if you're a teacher and you're just saying, hey, this is how you do it, they think the teacher might be some superhuman who doesn't suffer the way they have suffered. So yeah, it's sharing those stories like, hey, I was a terrible public speaker. I was so nervous. I'm doing a presentation in 2 weeks from now. I'm nervous. That can help them relate and connect and show, hey, actually, it is possible to overcome it.
Well,
Yeah.
that reminds me of doctorate's defense. You're speaking with a panel of experts. You thinking you're bringing something new here.
You just hoping that.
Breathing exercises.
Oh yeah, that's what I do
Your
with
heart
my
racing,
students.
just taking a minute to breathe.
When they look too nervous, I said, okay,
Just
before you start,
breathe, relax. Yeah.
stop. And I said, with me, do this with me. And I don't care who's around, but I'm going to look at the student and say, okay, breathe. Again, breathe.
Yeah.
And after the third one, I said, okay, you're ready. And then they go in and their voice is not trembling.
I think that's right. Sometimes when it's presentation, they're played relaxing music in the background. Like they do on airplanes when everyone's a bit nervous. Play some music and I say, just relax. It's not the end of the world. It's a presentation.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
You're here. You're gonna pass. Like, don't worry. I don't fail. I can't fail you. I'm not gonna fail it.
Yeah.
All I want you to do is try.
Yeah, I think especially at the beginning, it's just doing it. Because the only way you improve is to do it. And so even if it's not very good, you just got to do it. Yeah.
Those kind of memos gives a kind of a confidence to students because they are afraid of saying without anything.
And you see them.
Yes. Memos. Allows
I think if you're doing it in a classroom environment, everybody else positive mind frame, we're all
You always have that one student.
The one student
That one
who does what?
turns up with no book.
No book, no pen. They come in 10 minutes late. Yeah. Presentation? What presentation? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Let's move on. There's a lot I want to get through. This group, can you give me a solution to overcoming this fear of doing presentations?
Oh, we just had some great ideas to prepare well and self-confidence. Use notes or memos sometimes. Face your fear. Fear is normal in this situation. Admitting you're afraid before you start. Connecting with the students. Hey, I was afraid, I was nervous, now I've overcome it. And practice, rehearse and practice.
Yeah, I think all of those good ones. When I talk, I think there's some drinks coming in. When I talk to my students, we do a whole class on fear, talking about common fears, common solutions to beating your fears. We talk about that one. And the big one I always tell my students is PPP. In public speaking, what is PPP? Practice. Actually, that's right, yes. I think that's right. As this group said, kind of that Nike slogan, just do it. If you want to become good at anything, you're not going to be good immediately. You're not going to come up, like Steve Jobs. You're going to start off being nervous. You're going to start off making all these mistakes. You just got to accept that and just do it. So that is a mantra I try to put into my students as well. And then right after I talk about the solutions, I tell my students, now, let's practice. And so I think, who said they went to Toastmasters? Somebody? Toastmasters? Yeah. Oh, Toastmasters, yeah. This one, actually, I learned in Toastmasters. I was maybe 21 years old. I had to go to one of these workshops, and this was the one they did. And I've tried it in all my classes, not just high-level students. I even tried it last week with my lowest-level students, who are, actually level 0 at my university, pre-level. Even they enjoyed doing it. And it's quite simple. All we do is, at our table, we take it in turns to stand up for 15 seconds. And the other group members will tell them a random word. And you just have to talk for 15 seconds with no preparation using that random word. And so maybe you're feeling very scared. Oh, random word, I'm making mistakes. It is over very quickly, 15 seconds. When students sit down, they feel very happy. It's over. This life-threatening danger is over. 15 seconds. So I've tried it with every student. Yeah, I want you to try it here. So I'll just try and give you an example. Who can give me a random word? Tell me a random. Cactus is a plant in the desert. I believe it survives many years by keeping water inside its body. And actually, one of my favorite wrestlers in World Wrestling Entertainment a few years ago was called Cactus Jack. His name was Mick Foley, and he had a huge that was about 15 seconds. So you're just kind of improvising, yeah. It was so effective when I did it, I still remember the word I was told all those years ago. They said Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a big company. I can't remember what it was. So if you have a smartphone, can you take out a smartphone, put it in the middle of the table, and then we'll count 15 seconds for each person. If you're nervous, as I tell my students, if you're nervous, that's good. That's why we're doing it. Yeah. So and then normally at this point, I tell my students, okay, who is first? And that's when they do rock, scissors, paper. Group and group. Two separate groups. So this table will decide who will go first. My students always do rock, scissors, paper.
Kai by both.
Any English words. So who's first?
I guess I lost.
I won.
You didn't tell me a word?
Any English word.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And just get the timer. And go.
Absolutely is
My students are much faster.
Somebody was going to come to the meeting.
Oh, stand up, stand up.
Any word.
Yeah.
So tell him any English word.
absolutely.
Pen.
So the pen is your best friend.
Oh, you did 21. Oh, you can stop after 15 seconds, but that's fine. Next, who's next?
People say like your destiny.
I am next.
Maybe just go around the table. Yeah.
Stories and how it helps you to study stuff.
Tell me that. Simple, please. Love.
Love.
Love is a very powerful word. Money. Really?
Any word, yeah.
Random word.
Are you kidding?
I didn't say it. You said it.
You said it.
Oh, that's not a bad word.
Okay, earrings.
Earrings. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Earrings are an accessory that wear. However, it's quite common to wear
Oh no, it has to be from group.
No, I choose your word. Your word is painting.
Painting is a really nice, give a kind of a lot of party people, and when we see.
Okay, so I really like having parties. Last year it was my 30th birthday, so I had a big party with all my friends. We went downtown, we had some drinks, we had some barbecue. And my friends really liked my party. We paid for the food for everybody. It was lovely. Oh my god, I'm really not good at this.
Okay, done. Okay, Amy. Word for Amy.
To be a professional painting teacher, needs a lot of practice and practice.
Okay, I think that's good. Oh, you're already very confident.
I have sunny day because the sunshine is so beautiful.
Your hobby is also painting?
Okay, so yours is painting.
Again? Okay. 15 seconds.
Stand up.
Thank you.
I've got to stand up. Stand up.
Deborah, let's go. How about?
Pineapple. That was wonderful. And I was
3, 2, 1.
And I've been an active member since then, participating and helping with many conferences, international.
Excellent. Good
Okay,
job.
that's good. One more.
Doesn't have to be 50 seconds.
With students, usually they want it over after 50 seconds, but I think you're a confident table. Yep, so since you're finished, let me give you this one. What do you think we're looking at here?
I got an
It is, but
Lindsay said it would be at either at the National Uniting
what I want you to think about is how we can practice eye contact with our audience. Eye contact.
in 2 weeks in maybe
What are the tips for eye contact?
bring it back. So
Money itself. So you need to enjoy whatever you do to make money. So not money itself. Whatever you do to make money. And when you enjoy your doing things, I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
Nicely done.
Okay, very good. Let me give you this one now. There you go. All right, thank you. So you're much better than my students. When they start, they want it over after 15 seconds. I think you could have kept talking even more. And so what I want you to do, tell me how we can practice eye contact, or what is good eye contact in a presentation. Not like this, staring. That would be quite bad, I think. Oh, he's famous. Steve Carell, I think, in the American Office TV show. Yeah. He looks like he has bad eye contact.
to be like a lady. Move your eyes, and be a lady.
In teaching, I always volunteers when they're talking, they look right at me, only at me, because they're concerned about their grades. Include everybody and move around a little bit too, but just look at everybody. Please.
Let's take a look. What do we think about eye contact? Yes, this is straight on YouTube after the meeting. No, I'm joking. I will probably edit out the parts where you're doing your bit. Yeah. So Don't want any legal issues. What do you mean by bird watchers?
That was it.
Don't
There you
look
go.
out the window.
Ah, yes.
Some
It doesn't mean looking
students
out
were
window.
there and they're nervous and they look out. So I
Anywhere
call,
but over here.
yeah, I call that a bird
You know,
watcher.
they're looking up.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Stargazer or bird watcher.
Oh, actually, I taught a textbook using these skills.
it's-
Speaking of speech.
That's it. I said to them, it's based on a textbook.
Yeah,
You just said.
speaking of speech. There's a famous page where they talk about some of the posture. So
Yeah,
they mention
the pendulum.
I think the surfer kind of doing this one, if you remember. Yeah.
Or the wiener. Don't
The back to
Speaking
the
of speech.
audience, when they're doing the presentation, they've got the remote control like this, and they're presenting like that. And on this slide, there's
The voice is going over here. Yeah.
They're just like the back, just like watching it, and then all the mates are stood there as well, like,
It's like a cinema.
yeah. I'm just like, oh.
You don't want to turn your back when you're talking.
Look at the.
Yeah, you want to face the audience. I get that doing with my students. Let's have a look. Use. What's this one?
You read. Read the atmosphere of the class.
Ah,
You know, each class is different.
and audience if they're presenting as well.
Yeah. It depends on the students. Don't force them to make eye contact with the teacher. Look at everybody, and staring can make them nervous sometimes if they're too intensely
Oh yeah, definitely.
staring.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? Are we leaving out anything important?
I think so. I'll tell you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Let's think about eye contact. So this group, can you give me a tip for good eye contact? Not just in teaching, but also presentations.
Please. I like her.
What did you write?
I wrote please, which
Means.
posture, legs, eyes, arms, smile, enunciate.
Say again a little bit slower, please.
Posture, legs, eyes, arms, smile.
So posture, legs, eyes, arms, and smile. I guess an overall tip for a presentation.
Enunciate, yeah.
Yes, but if you watch some of the presenters with eye contact, what are some of the common mistakes they make? Our students, or not just students, I've seen even famous co-TESOL presenters doing them as well.
Staring at a particular individual for more than necessary.
Yeah, actually, they'll just talk on one person, and everybody's like, "Hey, what about us? Are we not part of this presentation?"
Staring above the audience.
Staring above. I remember a guy at Usong University. He had a very high position. I don't know if he knew, but people would kind of joke behind his back because he would talk to 100 teachers, but he would always do this. Yeah, so hello, well, welcome back from the semester. This semester you must do this and this. He would never look at anybody. It was always on the back wall. I think in that there's a textbook called Speaking of Speech. We might call that the clock watcher because there's usually a clock on the back wall, so they're just staring at the clock. So there's that one. Yeah. Any other common mistakes with eye contact? Another one might be kind of like this robotic movement where the presenter is kind of like, what do they call it, a windscreen wiper. Where they're not really looking at anybody, but they're...
With my students, because I have to teach them presentation skills,
Yeah.
they're allowed their notes, but I'm very adamant about not reading.
Yeah.
So I actually make them practice. I make them like divide their speech, okay? The pauses. So I said, if you're going to do that, you're allowed to look down, but look up. And I actually make them practice that technique.
Actually, that's a common question students have asked me because when we first start public speaking, teaching, they always want that script. Yeah. And then some students will come up, and I teach them later in the semester, oh, how can I present without having to look at my script? And so I give similar advice, maybe put it on a table, and if they forget, I think it's okay just to have a quick look and then get back on track. I usually start, well, maybe we'll talk about this more later, but we'll talk a little bit now. I usually let them use their scripts at the beginning, and then next I move to note cards or prompt cards, where the text becomes bullet points, so they don't have to remember it all off the top of their head, but just know those bullet points. And then eventually I want every student not having any kind of prompt, or script, or perhaps their PPT is the reminder.
Well, yeah, that's what I think. PPT.
Usually just a picture will go, oh, this is what I'm talking about.
Reminder. But what I tell them to do is color code their points. So when they're talking, they know after practice they're on their yellow section.
Yeah.
And if they get lost, they know they're in yellow, they're not in the blue or the pink section.
I think that would be that right. There's different methods to do with the memory.
Methods for memory.
And also, yeah, I don't tell we'll talk soon, but I don't tell my students to memorize scripts because I tried it. Actually, my TEDx audition was a little bit of a disaster because I thought I'm going to try and do something really special. I'm going to go in there and I'm not going to use any kind of technology. And because it was, I think, a 10-minute audition, I thought I'm going to memorize every word. I'm going to go in and absolutely nail it. And I practiced hours and hours at home. I even used this video camera practicing. And I did it every time at home. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And then I was doing my audition. There were 4 judges in the room, like American Idol, K-pop superstar. And I'm doing it, and I think, wow, this is going very well. 7 minutes in, I know there's only a few more minutes to go. And then I saw one of the judges, he turned his head. And I acknowledged in because when you're teaching, you're presenting, you're always instantly reacting to movement. Like, oh, what's that student doing? Like, oh, why, you want to interact. You want to deal with what's going on. So instant was to think about that, completely forgot where I was. And maybe 45 seconds in silence. That was very awkward. 4 judges, TEDx audition. And then, thankfully, I managed to get it back on track. But that was a very long pause. That was one of my worst moments in public speaking, I think. Yeah, it doesn't... thankfully, my overall audition was good enough that they didn't mind, and I made it through to the next audition. All right, I just told it now. But the advice I give my students, I have a video. If anybody wants it, they can email me afterwards. But there's a nice video where one of these experts in public speaking talks about presidents, especially presidents who are famous for public speaking, like Bill Clinton. And he said, there's one thing they always do. This is how they connect to their audience with eye contact. He says, don't do the windscreen wipe, don't stare at the back wall. He says, well, what you want to do is talk to one person here for 3 seconds. You talk to somebody here for 3 seconds, here for 3 seconds. And he said, even if you have 100 people, 1,000 people, when you target individuals, that whole section feels like they are being talked to. So you don't just focus on one area or this area. So yeah, if you want that video, it's a really good video. He recommends 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3. Maybe a little bit longer than it would feel natural, but it creates a better connection. That's what he said. How do you practice eye contact with your students as a public speaking exercise? What activity do you do?
I get them to stand in a circle, okay, about 4 or 5 people. And they have to like talk about themselves, and not the 2 or 3 seconds, but you have to scan with your eye. Well, I'm going to tell you about where I'm from. My hometown is Daegu, and and they have to scan. I said, you're a robot, scan it. Tell your sentence and look at those 4 people in their eyes.
Yeah, I think that's better than before, where they're just like this or staring in the distance. So start with that.
And I'll say, pick a topic like hobbies, and they have to do it for like 15, 20 seconds. Sit down and it's the other person.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What I did last week with my students, we did that 15-second activity. And then when I talked about eye contact, okay, do the same activity again, but now I want you to be using eye contact with the people in the group. Another famous activity you might like to try is you get your students coming to the front of the classroom, and so they might have their script, but they're giving their speech, and then you get the other students in the class to do something when they think the presenter is making eye contact. So I might look over here at Pat, and when I make eye contact, your job would be to raise your hand. So can you raise your hand? And then I might look over here. And you can get students practicing that a minute, 2 minutes. So it gives them an idea, oh, I can do it, I can make eye contact. And as a teacher, you can easily see that the student is doing it. Or you could see they're only doing one half of the room, and then they can do the other half of the room. So eye contact is very important. If you turn over the paper now, I think there's another picture. This is also very important. We kind of touched on it here already. So I talk about eye contact. What is this one? Maybe I'll write this one here. Questions could be coming later, but posture. This is posture. Many students, as we know, what is some of the bad posture they do? There are so many different, if you remember from that book, there's so many different ones. This one is, what is this one called?
Soldiers.
Soldier, military. And I've seen students, hello, I'm from Busan. And they face one direction. Why is that bad?
It's stiff.
It looks stiff, stubborn, closed-minded, and there's something missing as well if you're doing this, which is your hands, which is very important. There's that one. I think the one you see on the paper is kind of like this. The Leaning Tower of Pisa. Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Grabbing things like the podium.
Grabbing on the podium, yeah, if you had this, you might start leaning here or holding it.
Hugging the podium for dear life. And there's the pendulum.
The pendulum, yes, so the argument with the leaning problem is that in some occasions it might look too relaxed. So let's say you go to a job interview and you're just kind of leaning, you wouldn't do very well. So yeah, usually they don't want people leaning. Too much movement. Have you seen students kind of moving around too much? Yeah, they have that. Or maybe only the top half of their body moves. It looks like their legs don't move. I even saw a presenter, Noah Uvahari, I can't remember his name, very famous TED Talk speaker. Actually, that was his problem in his good presentation, but his legs would not move. So it just literally stuck to the stage. Yeah, he could not move. Yes. So can you just make a quick note on there? What is good posture? What do we want with our posture? I'll give you a couple of minutes. So we know what's bad, but what is the right way, or one of the more confident ways to do it?
Well, I use one from Speaking of Speech, where they have to have their legs shoulder width apart and their hands
Something
either
about your
folded.
hand should be kind of open, like, because it makes you more open, that you're vulnerable or you're connected, so just kind of open. He'll probably demonstrate for us something about open hands. Stand straight, that's right. That comes from good parents. I have shoulder posture, I slouch. These two.
Your legs shoulder width apart gives you balance.
Posture. That comes from a lifetime of your parents saying, sit up straight. Stand straight.
Get students to film them, get their phone and get to film them while they do it, and then ask them to review it afterwards and what do you think could be better?
Have you tried that as well with your teaching? Record yourself?
Yeah, I've recorded myself before and watched them.
Yeah, because I've spoken to teachers at my university. They had to be video recorded. They refused to watch it. They're like, I will not watch myself. It's not happening. Yeah, but if you really want to see your own posture, that's what you have to do. You have to go look at the video footage.
I was on a TV show with my school, and I was in the background. I don't know what I was doing. I was standing there going like this. And they were interviewing a student, and I'm in the background doing that, and I was like, oh my God.
What's this posture?
Yeah. It was very embarrassing. And I'm interviewing this girl, and I'm just stood there going, it's like,
That's video cameras for you.
I'm a bit nervous about the video camera.
Encouraging the others,
Yeah, I think I was getting a bit too enthusiastic about it.
Okay, let's talk about posture now. Let's see if each group had the same idea. What kind of posture do you recommend?
She had a great good posture, stand straight, which I don't have. I slouch. I hate my posture.
Yeah.
We had walk around, a little bit of movement, and something about your hands. Are your hands open?
Yeah, we'll cover that soon. Yeah.
Okay. And move to the back of the class. Move around the classroom.
And how about this group?
Well, I was talking about the Speaking of Speech stance that they showed in the book.
What is that? What does it look like?
So it's feet shoulders width apart when you're standing in front. But as a teacher myself, I tend to walk because, you know, there's 30 people in front of me, and you know, I'll go a little bit forward, but I rarely turn my back to them and go back, and then I look at this side, and then I concentrate on the right side.
Yeah, I think as teachers sometimes we forget. I used to observe a lot of teachers as part of my job, and also set up video cameras in the past. And yeah, sometimes I would see teachers, they would always be at the podium, and essentially the class was all about a PPT next, and everybody was just looking at the PPT. Very rarely you would see the teacher move into the back of the room.
I use the PPT and the board,
Yeah.
just.
Oh yeah, to mix it up, yeah.
But with the students, because I'm teaching presentation skills,
Yeah.
and their presentation is 8 minutes. Like, I'm there for a full hour class. Like, I'm up there an hour, but as an initial way of getting ready for presentation, then I concentrate on that kind of stance, just for beginners. I guess with time, things will change.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe similar to the book, and just on videos and presentations I've watched, maybe stand straight, but not kind of rigid straight, you know, like this. But you want to just look relaxed. A problem my students always have at the beginning is they are not facing the audience as well.
Yes,
they want to, I think, as you said over here, they want to look away because it's, you know, in their head, as I said, it's like a lion is here, isn't it? It's like they're nervous because they feel in danger. So you don't want to face the threat. So you have to get there. Also, I talk about proximity. As a teacher, you want to get closer to your students. So you don't want to be standing over here and there's a huge gap. You want to get closer to your audience. And your hands. I also teach a resting position. What is a resting position?
Sitting on the table.
Oh, that might be resting, but it's not in public speaking. But a big problem I noticed, because I used to do a lot of presentations, and I would always have something in my hand, a PPT remote or something. And then I started practicing without holding anything. What do you do with your hands when you're not using gestures? Like, where do you put your hands? Because some people, if they're nervous, they will do this.
Yeah.
They'll hold on, because they need to hold on to something. It could be here, it could be holding on here, it could be holding on the podium. They'll put something in their hands. So I do teach a resting position. There are two that you can teach. One is difficult, depends on your own style. Some people just recommend put your arms to your sides. Try to just look relaxed. Hey, how are you? How was your weekend? You might see that. Or there's another resting position. What's the other one? Very popular on news channels. Oh, that could be like if you're sitting down.
Yeah, they're sitting down.
KBS News. Yes, or maybe a newscaster, like a journalist on TV. They call this the steeple. You might see it, I don't know if anyone's doing it right now. I don't think so. Sometimes you see people sitting on tables doing this. And what does this represent? What does it mean? Usually, yeah, they say the leaders do this one. They're the leader at the table. I don't know why they call it a steeple, why it shows dominance or power. Maybe like a pyramid, an arch, or some kind of weapon.
Just kind of a focus.
Oh, focus, you think? Like a master, taekwondo master or something. Yeah, so you can do that on a table with your posture. When I teach job interview skills, I recommend, hey, you can use this, no problem. Or hands on the table. In presentations, you'll see people like this or like this. Mainly YouTube videos. So, hey, let me tell you about the new MacBook Pro. And then they keep coming back to this resting position. So I do get students to think about that. How do you get students to practice that without doing a presentation? Well, I'll give you a quick demonstration. So can you all stand up? You all stand up? And then very easily what I say to my students is, hey, just show me relaxed, confident posture. Just arms next to the sides, or you can use the steeple. And then I will walk around and I will see, is there any problem? That looks quite relaxed. Maybe kind of like this. Yeah, you have your hands in the pockets, but now you want them out of the pockets. Yeah? Like this. Okay, that looks okay. Maybe like that. Yeah. And then you would come into the gestures. Yeah, I think everyone looks quite relaxed. Sometimes when I start, the students are like this. Okay, take a seat. Thank you. And we're going to practice again soon, but I want to make sure you practice with something else that's also important, connected to posture. What is this? Gestures, yes. This is the thing I see missing from so many presentations, not just from students, but even in co-TESOL sometimes. They'll just be at the podium, or hands in the pockets, or facing away, looking at the PPT. How do I get students to start naturally using gestures? What are some ideas? How can we focus on gestures? Give you a couple of minutes. How can we put that into our students' natural presentation style?
Well, in the book, there are just whole pages. It's like, oh, well, my presentation has 3 points. My first point today, and I get them to practice that. Or welcome to the audience, like this pose is a
Oh, yeah, like there's some special hand signals. I've heard of things like that. Maybe, I think it might be the angle or certain things.
exactly.
This one.
Yeah, so, it's really.
Well, that might be one.
The cells have increased or has increased.
Yeah, I think. Oh, there's some different ones. But yeah, the research I saw, they call it a steeple. So I see lots of steeple. S-T-E-P-L. They say it shows power.
In my presentation rubric,
Maybe for some, I think for most people it's just a look
not just.
I think there's no for most people.
Even when they say thank you.
Yeah, I see it on many YouTube stuff. I don't think they're all free.
Yeah, so I think that's why I put my Korean students to practice those little gestures. I go, if you're going to say something big,
Idea on
do it big
gesture.
or small, like
This lady, this is sort of like, what do you guys think?
to make them aware of it.
To make it, so the question is how do we get students to do it? I would just be like, what's that shows is gag, usually a Korean gag. Very animated, right? So maybe all these gestures, and that engages your eyes and attention, right? So we say that's a 10x. Like when we turn it down, you can do the same with their presentation. And then they can animate their presentation through those gestures. So, let's go a bit more. I'm sure they're not going to realize that.
But it's funny because we'll practice these gestures, but as a presentation, we don't do that many at all. But I have them to do with advertisement, they have to use the
Well, I was mainly doing it for teaching our students how to use it, but I think these all apply to teaching too. Because if you are more effective at communicating as a teacher, you're going to have better tests.
with an ad for a product or something, and they got into it, and they just
Well, yeah, because we teach hours and hours every day. Can you imagine every day you're trying to put on this perfect presentation style? Very difficult. But I do think that.
But I think Amy makes a good point. It's not something that is very common in their culture, whereas I come from a family. We practice yeah, we put our hands a lot. These people from Canada, my mom.
My question was more along, so when a student starts presenting, they don't use gestures. They're like this, they're stiff. But how do we start getting them to use those
So how
gestures?
could we
That was my question.
encourage our Korean students?
Your little talk, some people talk with their hands, you know, it's just part of who they are. Others are just like more reserved. They're not comfortable with that.
Thank you. Let's talk about gestures. So imagine you're a teacher, you've got this group of students, when they present they're not using gestures.
No.
How do we get them to start just kind of naturally using these gestures?
Teach us. You're
Well, what I do is I show them a short video again, email me, I'll share it. A short video where one of these experts says, look, gestures are actually not that difficult. you don't really plan out gestures. So you'll see these presenters, they're not sitting down writing scripts. Okay, this sentence, I'm going to use this shape. This sentence, I'm going to do this. I'd be surprised if anybody really does that. It just becomes a natural part of your communication. And so what I do is, first I usually just start with the table. I'll ask them to talk to one classmate, just a conversation, maybe, hey, what are you doing at the weekend? What are your hobbies? And it sounds a little bit strange to them when I first ask them to do it. I say, okay, have that conversation, but I want to see you using your hands. So the first time they're like, oh, how was your weekend? Are you playing soccer? You know, it looks a little bit strange. And then over time, just that practice, it becomes just natural, it becomes connected to what they're saying. So we'll practice another activity. If you look around the room, what can you see? There was one over here. What picture is on the wall?
A water cooler.
This is an activity I like to do with students because as teachers we want to get students out of their seats because they'll get bored, they'll start using their cell phones. And it's great for presentations because you can have conversations and you start naturally using your hands. Because at a water cooler you're standing up. So I'll ask you to do this for a few minutes. Maybe this group, could you stand up? And could you stand next to this water cooler? And I think here we have quite a big group.
Over here.
So could we have maybe 3 people standing next to this one? And then could we have 3 people over here? So, three over there.
That's what we do about
Again, stand over here. And so, all I want you to do is just to make some small talk, some conversation, like what are you doing at the weekend, or if you don't know each other, just introduce yourselves. But as a teacher, I will be walking around, and I will just be talking, if I see it, posture and gestures. I won't mention your English or what you're saying. If you have your hands like this, I'll say, hey, gestures, show me your gestures. This is what I do with my students, and it works. If you would try to get into a circle, I think that will work. Okay, so introduce yourselves, talk to each other, and use your posture and gestures.
Like this way, I couldn't.
Is that a gesture?
She's like,
Going on vacation.
introduce yourself.
I'm not going on vacation anymore.
You got some gestures, that's good.
I don't want
to be around the moon. So you're basically a decision machine. Come on, the man you've been earning here. You're the manager's favourite customer. You walk in having bounty as well.
Yeah, honestly, builds that cash report, especially if you start randomizing things.
People are starving.
Everything you ask me I've been busy studying, so I've not been distracted.
What did you have to eat for breakfast?
Bowl of cereal.
And you can take a seat.
Pretty average for me.
Nice.
Because it's hard to find your own grades.
Name that for me.
So yes, I do this with my students, any level, even different majors. First time it will always be there like this. Or if there's a table, we'll start doing that. And then over time you randomize those groups and you keep kind of annoying them a little bit. Hey, hands out the pockets. Hey, use your gestures. They realise they have to do it.
Get away from the table.
Hey, away from there. Hands out, pocket. Stop using a cell phone. And you see the whole class eventually, after a few practice sessions, they just start doing it naturally. It just becomes part of their natural style when doing presentations. So it's worked with every student. I've tried it, which is some students a little bit more difficult there. Just over time, it becomes more and more natural. One more thing, might be on the other side, I think it is. If you can turn over. This will be the last delivery skill I'll show you before we move on to the other ones. What is this last delivery skill? Projection, or I might say your voice. So can you tell me, what should we be teaching our students?
Projection, voice.
I think it depends. Voice for me covers so many things, whereas projection is about reaching everybody in the room. It's like throwing your voice. It's like making sure everybody can hear it.
Not whispering.
But it might be similar, I think, similar definitions.
So the loudness or...
Yeah.
Same clear.
Saying clearly, your intonation and diction is important.
Yeah.
The first one students struggle with, what is it? What's the first thing they have problems with? Well, English, I beg pardon. But in terms of using that English, the problem of course,
Speaking loud.
that's it.
Speaking loud enough.
My favourite. And I say, come on, speak louder, speak up. And that is the first problem. Can you remember in Speaking of Speech, there were 3 things they taught students? Can you remember? I use them because they're really simple and they're really easy for students to understand and start incorporating. The first one is, write this here, stress. What is stress?
Stress on the word.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but actually this was a problem I had when I first became a teacher. The feedback I would get, hey, that lesson plan was okay, but you speak in a monotone. I was doing every practice training class in the same tone. So open your book, page 3, let's talk about animals today. And of course everybody would fall asleep. So stress, deciding which words you're going to put on. What else can we do? Stress.
Articulation?
Articulation, I guess that's similar to diction, how you articulate.
With the stress thing, I'd like to just mention, like,
Yeah.
a good way to get over that area is if you like listen to an audiobook. The people, readers that speak, they do really well.
Yeah.
They know how to stress the words out. I'm like, how are these guys doing that without taking a break? So when I listened to them, it actually helped me.
I think, yeah, giving good examples for the students. I usually show a video clip of, there's another great video of a newscaster. I think he might be Canadian. He's doing a news report, and he says, how you should speak is like this. Like, he just gives you these great examples, and students start doing it. So we have stress. Another one in the book is stretch. What is stretch? I've been waiting a long time. You know, there's some words you can naturally stretch. You can practice that with students. And there's something that I still need to work on in my presentations. What is it?
Silence.
Silence is close.
There you go.
Pauses, yes. In presentations, they sometimes call them pregnant pauses. Why pregnant?
Waiting. Not really silent.
I think there might be a few. I think it's, for me, it's kind of this, I've got some big news. I'm pregnant. You know, that kind of, something dramatic is coming. Yes, so what I do is, students would write their script, and I say, okay, underline the words you're going to stress. Underline the ones you're going to stretch. Put between the words a note way how long you're going to pause, and then they start doing that. And over time, that can become natural as well. So these are all delivery skills. Let me just quickly go over what I go over to next. Actually, I spend a lot of classes only doing this, because students might have a good grasp of structure and how to make PPTs and things like that. So these, for me, are the foundation of public speaking. But what would come next after they've got a good delivery style, they've got the eye contact, they've got the gestures, the posture, the voice, what would we start adding on to that now?
Charisma.
Charisma? How would you teach charisma?
Depends on your personality.
I think so, yeah. If I was talking about charisma and how that's about authenticity, like, are you confident enough to be yourself in front of an audience? A lot of charisma training is connected to that. I don't tell my students to do that just yet. That's quite a handful, I think. What I might talk about is just things like, I have great videos on visual aids. What would be the advice for visual aids? So remember, these are things that help your presentation.
Simple.
That's a good one. Keep it simple, student. Simple, stupid. Less is more.
We could say keep it simple, student.
You could do that as well.
Student, you might get,
And students always find it amusing when I say, okay, now let's talk about KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
that kind of work.
Yeah, not a KISS. Yeah. So keep it simple, stupid. Also, another good one to show them, especially for PPTs or any kind of visual prop, is reveal and conceal. What do you think that means? So I'll give you a quick.
Everything's not on the screen at once. You kind of.
Yeah, a common mistake you might see is they'll be talking and everybody's looking at a PPT because the picture is already there or the words are already on the screen. Or the script might have been
You can bring
Yeah, you
it
see
on
that a lot.
time.
You want it to time perfectly with what you're saying at that moment, so you can use animations in a PPT to put it up, or go to the next slide. So you might say, well, today I'm going to talk about the world's best board marker. You know, you make sure it connects. And so an activity I do with my students, I just give them a prop, hey, maybe a pencil, an eraser, their smartphone. They'll come up to the front of the class, and then they'll take it in turns to present their visual aid using reveal and conceal. As you said, I try, if I can, get my students into a computer lab. When they're working on PPTs, I can give advice. What are some of the most common PPT mistakes?
Too much screen. You want to make it large enough that your audience can see it from the back of the room.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta have a decent sized font.
Only if you're putting significant text on there, yeah.
You know, you don't want too much text on there. You want to have some white space on there, you know.
Keywords, yeah, students, of course, without the training, they'll put the whole script on there and start reading, they lose the eye contact, the gestures, everything goes. That's right, you want high quality images. Sometimes you'll see
contrast and not, like I say, don't use more than 3 colors. It's too busy. It's too busy.
Yeah, actually, I used to watch Ken's presentations. He used to pet Shakucha. And I remember Ken, was trying to be very creative, I think. So many images. It's like,
So many images within a certain period of time.
yeah, it was kind of like one of those, I guess, 1960s hippie music videos or something. It was very good, but too many images there.
Never really left it in the trance.
Yes, of course, so you're talking about structure, some videos, what you want intro, body, conclusion. How long should the introduction be? What percentage of the speech?
15%.
15 or 20%, the body is 80%, and then you have 20% for conclusion. Also, with structure, how should you start the speech or start a presentation? Question? Could be a question. What would a question be an example of?
Have you ever?
Say again?
Have you ever?
Have you ever? Yeah, starting a question is, with fish, what we have? A hook. So I teach many kinds of hooks. It could just be a very interesting picture, and everybody's wondering what is that. Could be a really interesting personal story. Or questions are one of the easiest ways. Who here has a job in Korea? You know, that kind of hook. So we go over many, many hooks, you can teach those. And then how about at the end of the presentation?
Questions?
Well,
I mean, that's like a bonus, isn't it?
if you talk about, let's just say, the question now was, who here has a job?
Yeah.
Right? And then you can say, okay, well, statistics show this. and your presentation is my employment. At the end, you can probably go back and say, well, at the beginning of this presentation, I actually had a job. Now let me see you would like to have a job or something along those
You
lines.
refer back to that.
Yeah, so build a connection.
Yeah, if you study essays and presentations, often the introduction and conclusion are like mirror images. They come back and they just restate what was already there. There's that. Yeah, so I teach what is called finishing with a bang. Because in psychology, I think it's called the primacy and recency effect. Primacy and recency. People are naturally more likely to remember at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
In the middle, the solos, they fall asleep and they lose concentration. The beginning and the end. Primacy, recency. Primacy means number one, first. What was the most recent? It's the last part. So yeah, let's say you have 10 presentations today. You're, according to psychology, more likely to remember the first one and the last one. So that's primacy and recency effect. So I finishing with a bang. Could be a dramatic sentence, like a call to action. So we've talked about jobs in Korea. We talked about the low wages. Now let's go out there and change this for everybody in Coty store. That kind of thing.
Well, yeah, actually they say that you should deliver the negative news in the beginning and finish on the
Oh, the bad news and then good news.
Yeah.
Another thing I also teach,
Especially
like,
when you give feedback to students.
I think so. Another thing I like to teach, because you might, I don't know if you would agree with me, but I've sat in many Coty store presentations where the presenter would do all the talking for 1 hour. Which, if it's a really good topic, that's okay, but if it's not so interesting, you know, psychology shows after 15 minutes you do start to lose interest, regardless of the topic. And so I do teach my students audience interaction. And so I get them coming to the front of the room, giving their 30-second, 1-minute practice speeches, and it's all about interacting with their classmates in the room. How can you interact with the audience? What can you do? Asking questions? Oh, that's good. Yes,
Build
true.
in that personal space.
I mean, like closer proximity, you get very close.
I know a friend of mine, the way he teaches, let's say he's teaching a subject, will come up and he'll pick up students stuff from the desk, and then we'll just start freestyling, like, okay, got a pen now, let's make a sentence. And they're all like, whoa, then he goes to another, that's how he does it.
Oh, okay, a dynamic sort of presenting,
Then
teaching
he
style.
steps back.
I think that's right,
I've done
yeah.
that before, it's like I use what prompts there are around.
I think that's, I taught last year one course where in the classroom there was no projector, no computer, but there were just, I think, 4 whiteboards at each side of the room. So there was nowhere for me to stand, there was literally no podium. And so everything was all about interacting, you know, in the middle of that room, kind of like an orchestra conductor, almost, so that was very good. Another video, if you want to watch it, just email me. One guy talks about 3 kinds of interaction with an audience. As a teacher, we have whole class interaction. So, hey, who here has a job in Korea? Raise your hands if you prefer bibimbap over omurice. That kind of thing. What is the next kind of interaction? So you've got whole class, whole audience, then... Oh no, that would be the last one. What's in the middle? Group, yes. You have whole audience, then you have subgroup. In most audiences, you have like a collective, a group of people. In this room, very easy to see, we've got one here and one here. So I can choose to talk to you as groups, and then I could also call you individually as well. So I do get my students practicing that as well. We only have a little bit of time to go, so I do want to give you one last bit of practice. Let me give you some paper. I want you to see how I do it with my students. So I'm going to give you this very quickly. And this is something I ask my students to do in every single class that I teach public speaking. So it's not just, okay, let's talk about gestures. At the end of every class, I make them do a mini presentation. Because as we know, PPP, practice, practice, practice. Every class you're teaching it, they must be practicing it. Usually with my students, I give them different kinds of topics. What is your dream? Tell us about a childhood memory. So each class is a very interesting story they will share for about 30 seconds. As they get more confident, I might raise that to 1 minute, 2 minutes. and they take it in turns. Of course, later they will then go to 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They'll be presenting in, to large audiences. But now, just for a couple of minutes, could you write down a teaching tip you would like to share with your group here? What would be your tip? Could be a presentation tip, could be any kind of tip. What would be a little bit of advice you can share today? Give you a couple of minutes. For my students, I usually give them about 10 minutes. You really need that time. Oh, you keep it? Okay. We don't have much time, so it can just be very quick, maybe 1 second. Cotiso is all about tips and advice, professional development. You 1 minute. Finish your writing. I think, yeah, there's a famous quote, isn't there? People don't remember what you tell them, they remember how you make them feel. Okay, so you all should be finished. Normally at this point, we don't have time here, normally at this point, I would get every student in the class to come to the front, even if they're still nervous, and they would share the whole class. And by doing that every single class, naturally they don't really get that nervous anymore. I just want you to stand up, take it in turns, and share it at your table. So if you can do it very quickly, maybe 10, 15 seconds. Oh, if you want to, you'll be interested?
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes.
Got time?
Yeah, it's 10 seconds each person.
Okay, so let's just, because normally I would do it random with students, but I think we don't need to do that here. So maybe we go around the room, okay? And you can say where you are, you can stand up where you are. Okay.
Okay, mine is short and sweet. Hear this, I don't remember where. Students don't care what you know, they care if you care.
Very good. I think that was good. Yeah, people don't remember what you tell them, remember how you make them feel, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mine is a simple. Just be confident what you share with students.
Yeah, actually, the first big presentation I did in China, 600 students and professors, very scary. And I just went out there, I had no experience, and I said, don't hold back. That was what I was telling myself. Don't hold back, just be yourself. That's what I want to do.
My experience, normally I try to memorize one student's life, one class. So next class I talk about what did you do and what your experience was good. Yeah, and then and the last time when I remember you went to some places, what was the place? So private question I did.
Remembering real information because it's a human profession.
Yeah. And they are real teachers we talk about.
I think that's a very good tip. Yeah. Thank you.
This works also as an activity to isolate and working out. I just try to do some small topics to discuss in groups, so they also get to know each other and discuss things.
I think that's good as well. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I just start my classes 3 minutes and I just put a question on the screen. You know, how was your weekend? Talk to your classmates. Then you start the class. It just gets them into the flow.
In my case, it's kind of a cliche, but anyway, it's been pretend to be entrepreneur at class to make the students the positive and active as well, because the more like childish. Sounds like really like what you are doing. It's and look foolish. Then I think the students will feel comfortable, and then they will follow me and more relax.
Yeah. They give advice in presentations. Don't be afraid to joke around. Have fun. Yeah.
I am a middle school teacher, so I think one of the things is to not talk too long. If you talk for too long with middle school kids, they really quickly lose interest. So as much as possible, think of ways how you can make it an activity where they're doing something, whether it's a worksheet, a speaking activity, and just avoid talking for long periods of time because they lose focus. Yeah.
Limit teacher talking time.
I try and
remove it entirely.
yeah.
Almost.
Off you go. Done.
Yeah.
So my teaching tip is know your audience and tailor your presentation towards that particular group.
Yeah.
So I think we can think a bit about what we were saying, like whether it be being entertaining or whether you're defending a thesis. You know your audience, you know what to compare and how to.
That's right, yes. Yeah, I didn't have time to cover that today, but that was another point. I show students PPTs I made for different groups of people. Students, teachers, yeah, it's really good.
I don't use PPTs, but I try to find a short YouTube that goes with the subject that I'm covering in the class. Maybe sometimes funny if I can, I can try something like that. Also, try to tell a short story if I can find YouTube.
Yeah, I do that as well.
Try to
Yeah.
experience a cultural thing.
That's good reason. So my teaching tip was survival quick. It's a memorize guys name, the Kimberly, Deborah, Amy.
All right.
Wow.
Thank you. Building rapport, you must know their names. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody always said I think it make the classroom easy to speak because we are using the second language and the emotion feel freedom and interact with them with some games and
Yeah.
that positive.
Interaction, all these games. I don't play so many with my university students, but when I taught children especially, loved all these games, flashcard games, throwing things in the trash.
Yeah, with the fun atmosphere.
Yeah,
That's
the atmosphere is
yeah.
fun.
For myself, it's based on my work experience. Before being a teacher, I was a school psychologist. So for me, what's really important and what I encourage in my colleagues is to be respectful of a student's pace of learning. I think people get left behind in the classroom, but if you can notice that early on, you can be encouraging to that person and hopefully bring them up to the level of the rest of the group, but never pointing it out to others.
They can feel embarrassed.
Yeah, so for me, pace of learning is important and never making a student feel embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
So she takes 5 minutes to do the activity and that person takes 10. I'm going to say, hey, why don't you help your classmate, and something like that.
Yeah, early finisher activities for those fast, we call them early finisher activities.
Yeah, so
Always have something
I
ready.
encourage them to be mentors to others that take a little bit longer.
Yeah,
And
if
there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, and if you have activities where other classmates might need them,
Yeah.
then they can always help.
Well, I noticed early on who is quicker, and then I changed seats I said, okay, we're going to change seats, and I put weaker ones in front without letting them kind of know.
Another thing I saw was called differentiated learning, like what we call learning stations, where you might have activities where they can always do a little bit extra. So let's say you created 10 questions about vocabulary, because you know there's going to be more students who are going to finish a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Maybe you create 15, so you've got 5 bonus ones. So they've always got something extra they can do while the other ones are still doing it. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Just one more thing, the book I was mentioning, it's quite a good book, Speaking of Speech.
Yeah, I agree.
The only thing missing, if I remember, so it has a lot of good stuff, all the delivery skills and structure. For me, the big thing missing is just the first thing we did, which is how you overcome that fear. Because I guarantee if students do not talk about that fear and accept it, I think this would not really work. They have to commit to overcoming that fear. So I'll start with that. Okay, thank you. I want to say
We have time for just a minute to real quick.
I don't mind.
So very quickly, I know some of us have a Toastmasters background. Do you have a Toastmasters, or what's the best thing you've ever learned from Toastmasters?
Actually, I don't have a Toastmasters background. I did visit one Toastmasters event a few years ago in Busan, but that was before I did any presentations. And as I kind of referenced already, the only reason I got into presentations was by accident. Because I was an admissions officer for a business school, I had to go on a business trip to China. And I had never done a presentation before. And they said at the end of the week, you'll do a 2-hour presentation to 600 students. And I was thinking, and they only gave me a week to prepare. So I've got 600 students, and that was very scary as the day got closer. It sounded very, very daunting. So I got there, and thankfully they reduced it down to 1 hour. And I didn't have time to prepare, so I just talked about, there's a picture of me doing it on LinkedIn, and I talked about the topic was intercultural communication. So I talked about British culture, and then I kind of cheated. I had some students make some videos which I played. But I got onto that stage, and there was 600 people there, and you see all the professors on the front row as well at the university. It's a huge university in Wuhan in China. But I got there, and I remember I was telling myself, don't hold back, just, it's so scary, just get out there and do it. And when I got on there, I realized, wait a second, this isn't that scary in reality. In your mind, it feels like, the end of the world, or the ceiling's going to fall in. But I went up there, and there were 600 students, a sea of people, and I was like, wait a second, nothing bad's happening, I'm doing a presentation. And then after that, I said, I want to do some more presentations. So eventually, I volunteered to do a co-TESOL presentation for my local chapter in Daejeon. And then I was like, again, I was very nervous, and I went in, and I was like, actually, it wasn't that bad. Each time I do a presentation, I realize, nobody's dying, it's not the end of the world, and I'm always very shocked at the end, nothing bad usually happens. So I even started to enjoy it, so I enjoy doing it now as well. So I think the tip I always tell to my students at the end of these courses, practice, practice, practice. If you want to get good, just go out there, take the hits, don't worry about people. I still get nervous. I remember I had that TEDx event in November, an hour before I was in the bathroom. And again, I had never been filmed before, actually. That was the first time in November. And so I went out there, and there were 200 people, I think. There were TV cameras, and I was the first one on stage. So the MC, I'm behind this curtain, waiting, filming, blah, blah, blah. I come out, and I look, and I see 200 people, video, TV cameras. And I also see students using their smartphones. Like a pop singer, recording it.
You're famous.
It felt like that, it was so surreal. I couldn't believe I was being filmed and people would care about that. And again, it feels like this horrible thing that's coming in your head. You get on stage, you finish, I'm still alive. And I'm always, as I said, I'm always shocked. And then you realize, wait, if I can do this one, I can do another one. And then you can do another one, and do another one. So it's all about just get the first one done, survive it, which you will, and then you can do more. Each time you get better and better and more comfortable. Any more questions?